Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and this is my nemesis, Matt Freeman.
Pleased to be here.
Oh my god, that was so creepy.
Good.
Well done. Matt, this week on the show, we are doing another one of our patron-produced episodes. For, I think, the first time in a long time, we've gotten down to a rhythm with this thing. I'm very proud of us.
Yeah, we're making our way through the stack.
Slowly, very slowly. For those of you that don't know, folks who pledge to us at the Doof Warrior level on Patreon, that's the $20 level, get to select a topic for us to do the show on. And this week, we have longtime patron Keira. Finally, it was her term, and she selected for us Rooster Teeth's 2019 animated web TV show, I guess you'd call it.
Sure.
Genlock.
Yeah.
So I don't think this was anything that either of us had watched. It's new. It's very new. It just started in January, and I think it's 8 episodes and finished up, I guess, whatever January plus 8 is.
Yeah. I hadn't heard of it at all. It might be interesting to just talk about Rooster Teeth for a minute, actually.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to do that.
Yeah.
Especially since the first patron-produced thing we did was a Rooster Teeth movie.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name of that film now, but that's the
Laser Team.
There you go, Laser Team. That's the first patron-produced thing we did, and now here, a year and a half later, we're doing another thing they did.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we're going to talk all about Genlock. Then we're going to get into some news regarding Star Wars, because since we last had an extra moment in our episode, the new trailer came out for Rise of the Skywalker, and a bunch of other stuff happened because they had their whole Star Wars celebration week. So we're going to spend a little bit of time going through that stuff, and then we're going to cap everything off with me talking about the new Leica film, Missing Link, that is probably already out of theaters because no one ever goes and sees these things. But that's the show for the week.
Okay, let's get into it.
It's gonna be a good one. I say this very hopefully. I don't know. I think it's gonna be a good one.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Genlock.
Welcome to the Anvil. Thank you for all your time thus far testing for our program.
That's a hell of a way to say hello.
That's nothing. Wait till you see what he does to you next.
We are at the dawn of a new age. What is Genlock if not the next step in humanity's evolution?
Hiya. How you doing? Don't mind me, just learning how to walk. Again.
Looks like we got a team.
Triumph over traffic. Go some knots while they man like misery. Charging like a bull, hit the ground running. Pushing to the limit so you know that I'm coming. Never give up, never give up. Never give up, never give up. Stay fight, never give up. Fight, fight, never give up. Stay fight, never give up. Fight, fight, never give up. Never give up.
All right, Matt. How do we summarize this thing?
Well,
so it's not an anime.
No, it's
if we say it's an anime, we're gonna get yelled at.
yeah, it's a mecha anime without the anime.
It's an anime in every way except for the fact that it was not produced in Japan, which apparently means it's not an anime. It's an anime in style, in themes.
I mean, I guess maybe the visual style is a good place to start out in the conversation.
Sure, let's do that.
Because it's one of the most noticeable things about it, and I think it works really well. Like 99% of the time, I actually like it a lot. I think it's well done. So basically, it's like I don't know what the word is for it actually, but like basically CGI except with rendered as a cartoon.
Yeah.
Is how I would phrase it. I'm sure there's a name for this.
Yeah, it's definitely computer animation rendered to look like kind of like hand-drawn animation, kind of.
Yeah, and then in some instances, I'm sure there is some hand-drawn somewhere in there.
There might be, yeah.
I mean, I might be wrong, but yeah, and it's like, what was that show? I don't remember actually what I was going to say, but anyway, the point is, the point is that it looks good. Like I've seen attempts at this style before, and it not looking good, but there's actually like a very artistic kind of cinematographical eye behind this. Like I'm thinking of a lot of scenes where they're like in their headquarters, and it's just like the environments are well designed. The costumes and outfits are usually pretty cool, although very like stylistically anime. The character faces move and look like real humans, and actually emote, and which goes really well with the voice acting, so that like you actually buy the drama of it. And I mean, which I think is all interesting, because your stated complaint about anime, your number one stated complaint about anime has been that the images are very stationary and not very dynamic. And this story, I think, gets around that pretty well. I didn't have a problem with that, at least.
No. I mean, I guess overall, what'd you think of this thing?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. In fact, I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to, just based on the idea of like, oh, it's a robot fighting anime. Okay.
Yeah. I've never seen one of those before. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. But like, I found it to be very like tight. It was 8 episodes, and like each of them is, short and entertaining, and it develops the characters. And it was interesting because like at about halfway through the series, I actually had this moment where I was like, okay, we've established the characters, we've established the setting, and now we're just going to get several episodes of robot fights. And I was completely wrong about that. The plot continues to twist and turn throughout the entire season, and it kept me engaged, and it brought some great character moments and some exciting action moments. It's funny, I thought my least favorite element of the show was actually the robot fighting. Like, and it was fine, yeah. but I wasn't like, yeah, this is great robot fighting. I was just like, okay, it's fine. I mean, I've seen robot fighting. It's actually, I do care about the characters, and I want them to win. So that's more where I'm paying attention and invested.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, well, I mean, what did you think overall?
I surprisingly liked it. It's not my favorite thing in the world, and I don't think I would have sat down and watched all 8 episodes if I didn't have to. But I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I agree with you on the animation. I think it did bother me at first. Like it's there's something very clear here. Like, this is not like a huge $1 production, right? Like, this is like, the most impressive thing about this show is the voice cast that they've gathered for it. So the animation is effective. It's not like blow you away, right? And I it bothered me maybe for like the first 5 minutes of the show. I was like, oh no, this animation. And I think maybe they just got better with it as the show went along. As like their technique got a little better. Maybe that's just all in my head and I just got used to it. But I found that very quickly it was not bothering me at all. Nothing about it was bugging me visuals wise, except for, I mean, the first kind of the mechs are, I think that design is so boxy and weird and terrible. But I feel like that's by design, because they're like,
we're gonna get past this, yeah,
right, making you want to look forward to the future designs. But yeah, I mean, overall, I was into the story. I think the characters are interesting. I have some complaints here and there, but I was surprised at how much I like kind of locked into this thing. I agree with you on the fighting. It's not fantastic. Like, I'm sitting here trying to remember like specifics of the fights, and I like nothing is coming out, it's just like robots punching each other.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I legitimately had trouble like following what was happening. They would just be like too much movement too fast. And I was just, before we sat down here, I was like, I was thinking to myself, like, I remember all these awesome moments from like from Gundam Wing, and I looked them up on YouTube. And the thing about like Gundam Wing is like, yeah, it actually works really well to have basically stationary images and then very clear movements between the stationary images. That's actually a pretty good way of conveying action. It's not a good way of conveying drama. I agree with you there. But like when you've got giant colorful mechs and they're just like flitting around and hitting 15 times per second, you can't really see what's happening. And that's just inevitable. Like the human eye isn't meant to do that. So
let's dive into it.
Let's
talk about this story a little bit. Yeah.
I guess
so
spoilers.
Yeah. Complete spoilers for all 8 episodes of the first season of the show. That's all we watched is the first season. But the basic plot of the story revolves around a character named Julian Chase, who is a pilot with, what were they called?
The Vanguard.
The Vanguard. Are those the good guys, though? I think the Vanguard is just a military division.
Yeah, the good guys are the oh man, it completely escaped me just as I was about to say it. The starts with a P.
I honestly don't remember. Did we watch this? We did watch this, right?
We totally did. Totally did. He was piloting his airplane thing, and his girlfriend was piloting a mech thing. His girlfriend voiced by Dakota Fanning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did we say he was voiced by Michael B. Jordan?
We did not.
Which, I mean, that's like the voice talent, like how they got these people is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's awesome. So he crashes while defending New York from an attack. It's New York, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And is assumed dead, and then they recover his body and realize that, or I don't know. It's all I'm Tarantinoing it here, but basically, his body is terribly damaged. But they figured out how to upload his mind into these mechs, which makes them a very capable weapon, obviously.
Yeah, and that's what Genlock is, right? Genlock is this technology where you can take the brain, upload it into a mech, and then they fight as the mech. So I want to kind of focus on the pilot a bit here because I almost think this was my favorite episode, weirdly enough, considering it has like barely any of the mechs in it. But I just think from a storytelling perspective, I was kind of instantly riveted because we set up this this war between the Union, which we don't really understand what is, and maybe one of my complaints is that I never really got an understanding of what the Union was.
That's interesting. I think we're gonna have to have one of our trademark disagreements that we never have.
Oh, really?
Because I love the fact that the Union is completely mysterious.
I don't need to know like everything about them. I just like I never was clear on like what like how the conflict started.
I mean, we don't know. Are they even humans? Like they seem to have super high tech. They have the
nanotech that nobody else is close to having.
Right. They rely on like brainwashing. All of their equipment looks like demonic, basically. And they're just and it's more than just like, oh, they're the bad guys. Like I kind of suspect this is going to be like the the plot for the entire series is we gradually learn more about what's going on with the Union. And
I mean that is one thing about this season, that the Union ends up not really being the bad guys, right? I mean they are the force that they're fighting against, but the source of the conflict, the antagonist, is the copy of our main character. So. We don't ever actually meet or see any members of the Union leadership or know anything about them. It's very removed from who they are. And yeah, I mean, I get why you like that. I just want a little bit more, just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think like this pilot, like the whole first 5 minutes of this 30-minute pilot is Chase introducing his girlfriend to his mom and his sister, and it's this really interesting way of like introducing us to the new technology, because they're going through this whole thing, and it's not until the end that we realize that neither of them are really there. There's this moment of like slight puzzlement when you're like, huh, what? Why aren't they eating? This is weird that like the other two people are eating, but they're not eating together. And then of course the reveal is that they're just holographically projected. And I think that's a great way of like establishing very quickly what the level of tech is in this world. Before you get into all the conflict and the crazy science that's going down. Like, we've got the idea that's supposed to be 50 years in the future. We get it.
And we're going to be relying on using these holographic projections a lot in this show. So get used to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you also get the impression that the mother and sister were actually captured, and some later plot in the show is going to involve, having to go save them or something?
I think that's a fair assumption. That is not where my mind went, but it was not till very late in the show that they were like, oh yes, they also died in the attack on New York.
Yeah. Well, I felt like at some point they said like, oh, I lost them. They're dead. And then I was just immediately like, no, they're not dead. They were introduced with too much of like characterization and uniqueness, and also that just gives too good of a plot point for later on.
Sure, yeah.
So.
I kind of hope not, though. I don't know. I think that's very standard. I don't know. I'm not in love with that idea. I think you're probably right, but I'm not in love with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we kind of this is one of the things that I think is a little weird about the show is our first introduction is this relationship between Chase and Miranda. They are together, they are in love. Then he dies, quote unquote. We jump forward into the future where she is like kind of been hardened by the war, and their relationship from the pilot is like the emotional core of this whole thing, right? Because the pilot ends with this realization that, oh, he's not actually dead, and how she's dealing with that. And if I had a complaint about the show, is that I feel like for the most part, that thing which I thought the show set up to be the emotional core of it is kind of dropped, at least until the very end. Like it comes back around at the very end when they was like, she gives her speech about how it wasn't just you that died that day. We both did. And things are never going to be the same, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like for the most part, there's like one or two scenes where they talk to each other or try to talk to each other. Like she's dating someone else and like he's going to have to deal with that. But it's never like never the point of the episodes.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
I mean, I felt like we were just missing some scenes.
Yeah.
You know, I thought this was actually a really good scene where he's in his Holon thing and he's like spying on her basically.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And like the other guy comes up to her and he's like, when are you going to tell her? When are you going to tell him about us? And he kind of like literally like stumbles in his giant mech because he's so like out of sorts at hearing this, and then like pretends he wasn't listening. But then nothing comes of that at all. Like that conversation doesn't happen. We don't see any subsequent like him feeling anything about that. And yeah, I mean, I agree completely that like it's not like it was unrealistic. It's like it's just that it missed the opportunity to let us feel, like you said, that the heart of what felt like it should have been the heart of the story. And I think you could almost say that across the board, my personal preference would be to spend like 10 to 20% more time with each of these characters on whatever their deal is.
Yeah.
Like every once in a while, like we would have there was like one episode where Cammy is like struggling with mastering her mech, and like you spend more time with her on that episode and you see her individual struggle, and she's working extra hard to get better at it, and she's like taking risks she shouldn't be taking.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. And I was like, oh, maybe this will be the kind of show where like every episode kind of like spotlights one of the characters and we learn more about them that way.
But definitely not.
And it did not really do that.
It was really just her.
Yeah.
Like the rest of them were just kind of touched on. And yes, we have to say that this is supposed to be season 1 of the show.
Yeah.
So these are things that they could reserve for later in the show. I think that's true. But I do think that they should have gotten more focus, or at least that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at like the overall plot of the show, so much of it has to do with Chase's dealing with this concept of losing his body and this concept of who is he now, that he's like kind of in this middle ground of existence where he's like, he's got a body, but he spends a lot of time outside the body. And he's mostly just a hologram all times, and like him dealing with this. And I think that's a cool theme, and that's a really cool thing to explore. And I think that's what the show really wanted to explore, but I feel like it just like skimmed the surface of it. I just feel like it didn't really dive into this idea very much, especially when he's confronted with his antagonist, who is him, who is a version of him that he could end up being. And I just feel like I wanted more of that. I wanted so much more of and maybe that's just asking the show to be something it's not, but I feel like they're talking about these complex ideas and themes and concepts, and I wanted it to be focused on more.
Yeah, I'm very hesitant to even say what suggestions I would make, or what changes I would make, because I'm like, I opened up the episode saying I really enjoyed how like tight it was. We've got eight short episodes. We introduced these characters. It was great. It was tightly written. Every scene had a purpose. Every line of dialogue felt like it was moving the plot forward and characterizing the character who was speaking it. Great, good stuff. So for me to say I want more time, it's like, well, Matt, you're just saying you want the story to slow down, basically, and I just have to be like, well, no. I mean, maybe some like I'm not against having an episode focus almost entirely on some characters struggle, and the actual like global plot is just a way of giving them space to explore that struggle. Like that's the kind of storytelling I like, and I guess I would like to see more of that.
Yeah. I mean, the final conceit of this whole season is Chase deciding to abandon his body, right?
Yeah.
For the sake of his team, he's going to abandon his body. He's going to let his past go, metaphorically and literally, and transition to this new way of existence. And and his hope is that because of the people around him, because his friends and his new family, he will not be the thing that Nemesis is. And I think that's a really great moment. I just don't know if I felt that the show earned it, right? Like, I don't think that was, I didn't see that internal struggle dramatized to a point where, like, the moment where he finally accepts it felt really earned. Like, the only way they kind of do it was every time they're trying to do the mind meld thing, he's like super resistant to it. Oddly. Like, they don't really ever explain till the very end why he's super resistant to it. And the explanation makes sense. But I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to see his struggle, his internal struggle, just a little bit more. And I think the Miranda character would be a great way of dramatizing that struggle. If we spend a little bit more time on the failure of their relationship in this new existence, then you get to understand, like, the struggle that's going on in here. Like, he's this new thing now, but he misses her, he wants her, and he can't have her anymore.
Yeah.
And I wanted a little bit more of that. Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I basically the whole time I felt like he was being unreasonably cheerful about living in a vat. And and like, I mean, and this goes into the realm of like just how I would have done the story differently, I think. But like, I just don't quite buy that a human being would be that cool with the circumstance that he was in. Mm-hmm. Even if he's a very cheerful person innately, it's like there's gonna be some moments where the resentment boils up, and he's not just gonna take it lying down, and maybe he will still make the same choice to sacrifice his body for his friends. Sure, but it's gonna be a extremely painful choice. Yeah. With some resentment along with the choice, maybe.
Yeah, and I think what I wanted was a clear understanding that he would not have made that choice in episode 2, but by the end of this season has become a person that's willing to make that choice, Yeah. And I think that's the part I was missing. It was like the shift, the change, the willingness to accept his fate. I wish was focused on a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I mean, all that being said, like, I liked the ideas here. Like, this is, I don't know if you've ever seen Pacific Rim. Yeah. But this is very Pacific Rim-y. Even the mind melding thing, now that they need to mind meld to operate the robot in Pacific Rim, but here it's just another strength of the robot. I think that's a really cool thing. I think this general idea of like hooking your mind up to a mech is a really appealing, fun idea to me, because like, who wouldn't want to be able to do that?
Yeah,
sure. I actually think that the built-in limitations were very smartly done here too. Like, my first initial reaction, and I was actually talking to Michael about this because he watched the show as well. He couldn't be here tonight, but he watched the show, and he was saying one of the things that he didn't like is that he felt that there were no stakes because the character wasn't actually in the mech, so the character was never actually in danger. And I disagree with him on that, because I think the show does a really good job of drawing out like the consequences and stakes within the robot battling. Like, this idea that you have all this extra tech that you can activate to give you a bonus, but I mean, just the idea of uptime, right? Just the inherent idea of uptime is a really good idea. It's just like your brain can only handle this connection for so long. Using extra special stuff drains that faster. And if you don't get out of it, you're screwed and you're stuck forever. You can't go back to your body. That's a really cool idea, just in general. And I think it adds a lot of dramatic stakes to the combat, which we see play off in the finale in wonderful ways. And then also the idea that like each one of these robots has like a central core, like the heart of it, and if that thing's destroyed, then that's it. They can't really build another one. So like I mean, yes, the character might not be killed in battle, but like their effectiveness in the story would effectively be removed.
I mean, but they could be, though. I mean, that's what happened. The only reason why they kept Chase from being kidnapped before the story started was that they had made a backup of him, and then they stopped doing that. So if their cores are kidnapped or destroyed, then they are dead. It's not like they wake up again in their body if their core gets destroyed. And I thought it was really effective actually when I clicked off, so I forgot her name instantly. But when Cammy was sort of like cornered by the evil mech, and he like just like casually rips off her head and starts trying to like pry open her torso, and she's like screaming and thrashing. Yeah,
because she like feels like her head got ripped off. Yeah.
And that was great because like she's not a warrior, and she's especially at that point, she's just no good at driving her thing. So she's just getting absolutely. She's just terrified. Like she's not ready for this at all. And I thought that was great. Like that was one of my favorite moments actually was the like, oh shit level of you guys are in over your head. This is a bad plan. She's not ready to be here. And it's going to be bad, thought that was great. And so, and that wouldn't have worked if there weren't the stakes of like, the thing could actually destroy her core and kill her. So that's true. I guess that's a good way to transition to talk about these side characters a little bit. We've spent a lot of time on Chase and Miranda a little bit, but let's talk about these guys because Cammy is like the exact kind of little girl anime-y character that would normally drive me crazy. It's the exact type of character I can't stand. Whenever I think of anime, I think of these characters and I shudder, but I did not mind her in this story. And I was very confused about that at first. I spent a lot of time thinking, why isn't this character bothering me as much as the other ones were? And I think it's because they took the time to really focus on her weaknesses as a character. Yeah.
And they made you very sympathetic to her. Like you said, she's not a warrior. Like the reason she's here is just because she's compatible. That's it. She doesn't know how to fight. She's in over her head. She's a techie. Like she loves all the tech stuff, but she's not a combat person at all. And I think that kind of endears you to her in a way that like her more anime-esque annoying traits fade away. And I just think there's less of them in this generally, right? Like it's definitely not the young whiny schoolgirl type archetype at all.
No, I think she's a fully fleshed out character who happens to be a huge weeb. And that's where the anime trappings come in, is like she wears the ears in her hair because she thinks that's cool because it's from anime. Like it's her all of her affectations are her choice, and you're like, oh, okay, I buy that as being like what this character would do because I buy her as a character. Like the stereotype you're complaining about, very often, if you even get to the point of asking yourself this question, you're like, why would they choose to dress that way? No human would do that. But if they're an anime fan, then that makes perfect sense. Yeah,
you're right. It's definitely like she's dressing that way because she saw it on an anime.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I love that actually. Yeah. I think that makes a lot more sense in world and definitely feels less like nails on a chalkboard every time that person opens their mouth.
Yeah,
and of course they're voiced by Maisie Williams, who I love. So. That helps too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. She is one of my favorite, she's comic relief, right? She's really,
absolutely
really effective comic relief.
And she plays off all the other characters really well too. Yeah. Like she plays off Kazu a lot because she like, he's Japanese. So she like assumes he's like the big weeb too. And he's like, no, I watch that. I read manga when I was a kid and then I grew up.
Right.
And it's really great. and
Yeah.
she's like flabbergasted that this type of person would exist.
Yeah.
And yet he still wants to be the cool samurai.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I love that too, because like he's kind of this like gruff, no nonsense type guy, but he's so happy when he gets to have the samurai mech. He's like, my 10-year-old self is so happy.
Yeah.
Is what he says. And
Yeah.
I love that.
That was a great moment. Yeah. I like Kazu's character. I'm not sure. So I like the idea of everything he says being in Japanese, being subtitled. I like that as a science fiction concept. I'm not sure if it worked for me, if like in terms of its effect, because it's just distracting that every time he talks, you have to read it.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not used to it, and there were times when I was just watching the show, and you like, if you're watching a subtitled show, you're used to having to read every line,
right?
But if you're just listening to a show and it's jumping, you're like, oh wait, and then I would miss some of his dialogue sometimes.
Me too. But I mean, I like the idea of it. I like the idea that they're all basically able to like subtitle in the blind sight sense what he's saying, because they all have these contact lenses.
Didn't they show? Is that how it worked? Because I thought that like the first time he talked, it translated to English like robotically, and then they just faded that out. I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering.
What I remember was, and I remember this shot being kind of cool actually. Like he says something in Japanese, and then it like flicks over and does this like extreme close up on Cammy's eyes, which you can now see at that level of close up have like some kind of mechanical contact lens on them. And then you see from her point of view what she's seeing, which is like superimposed with all kinds of stuff. And one of the things is the subtitle of what he just said. That's my recollection.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, now that I remember it, that is a cool sci-fi idea, and it makes like, I think it allows a character to speak their native language, which they absolutely would, while also not like, not having everyone else not understand them, which would have gotten annoying real fast.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to Valentina.
Sure.
Val.
Romanician.
So Val is a really interesting character. And I think Val is one of those characters that I wish the story explored more. And if it's season 2, I feel like they announced a season 2, but I didn't check up on that. So if season 2 happens, I hope that they spend some time on Val, because obviously she's a non-binary character that's established when they go to the little anime world, or I guess it's just an internet.
Yeah, the MMO world.
Yeah, the anime MMO world where Cammy's a bunny.
Right.
And I like, they're very matter of fact with her gender fluidity. I think that was cool. I think it was great that they had Kazu be like a character that doesn't understand interact with that in a way that was non-judgmental, but just like asking questions.
Right. Just kind of curious. Yeah.
Right. It's just like, so wait, what does that mean? I don't. And like, there's no judgment anywhere in the team from her. It's just like some questions that needed answering, and then we move on. And then it's like, I was worried that they were going to make this like part of her plot line, and I'm glad that they didn't do that. But she's got like, there's hints to her past, right? Because she, out of everyone, is the one that seems to have the most combat experience. And they give little hints and bits and pieces about what happened to her. I mean, she fought for a very long time, was retired, and this pulled her out of retirement. So I wanted more. Like, I think that's my biggest complaint about this thing so far, is I just wanted a little bit more. Yeah,
right. I mean, if this were the first season and we had a whole bunch more seasons to watch, I might feel differently. But I agree with you completely that I feel like she was the one with maybe the most potential that I didn't get to see. I mean, we've talked about the voice acting. Just there's something about this level of voice acting quality where you really connect to the characters and you see them as characters, and you want to get to know them. She's great. Want to know more about her?
Yeah. So, and then I'm honestly blanking on the last one's name.
Yasamin.
There you go.
Yasamin Madrani.
Yeah. And I'm so confused about this character. Just because, like, I feel like out of any of them, we got the least hints. as to who she is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was kind of okay with that because I like this idea that we're not learning anything about the Union, that it's just like it makes it somehow even more kind of interesting to me.
I guess.
I
Yeah.
mean, I agree. Like if this were all if this were it, if this were the end and I knew that there were not a season 2, then I would be really annoyed.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Her backstory is kind of intrinsically tied into the Union, so it's not going to be really focused on until we explore the Union more.
That's
I
what
think
made
that's fair.
Yeah, that was my assumption. Actually, was like I don't know. I feel like this show, as it goes forward, it is going to focus more in on these characters, and we'll learn about their dark pasts, and there will be more conflict to be gleaned there, because the fact that she used to be in the Union, it's obviously going to lead to some conflict. So
well, and then her spot in the MMO has her wearing a hijab, right?
Yeah.
And that's again like touched on,
Yeah.
and it's like, why would you wear it in here? Like, so
Yeah.
obviously, I feel like they're hinting towards some importance of her religion, that she would want to decorate her character that way, but feels like she can't in real life. And that's really interesting. I want to see that explored. But yeah, I guess that's fair that they can't really they can't really dive into this without pushing forward with the Union stuff, and they really don't want to do that yet.
Yeah. I thought one of the most interesting characters was Dr. Rufus Weller.
You mean played by David fucking Tennant?
Played by-
How did they get David Tennant?
I know.
How did they do this?
It was so good. Like, he's so funny, and
Yeah.
but also has like this kind of edge, and he's just a great character overall. And we know that we basically got all we were going to get from him, because spoilers, he dies before the season ends, and it works great. Love it.
Yeah.
Love his character. I love his performance. The performance almost like sells, like the dry humor is so critical to making this character work.
I agree. And like, I feel like there's so many ways you can do the mad scientist / mentor character, that he just is like dull or a little bit flat.
Yeah.
But I think the writing on him was really sharp, combined with David Tennant's excellent performance, really built this character. I was legitimately sad when he died.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I was glad
me
that he
too.
gets to live on in the robot a little bit.
Sort of. Yeah.
sort of.
Yeah. I'd like that moment where the robot is staring at his ex-wife, and his ex-wife clearly doesn't realize that part of him is in there, and Julian kind of ushers him along, because I thought that was a really sad and kind of neat moment.
Yeah, I agree. What else is there to talk about? I guess we got to talk about. I thought that the episodes in this show were very good episodic content.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I thought that, a lot of times in show, and I think this is the fact that it was released week to week and not like dumped all at once like on Netflix. But I really thought like each episode had a clear beginning, middle, and end, and had a clear like story within it. And then we move on to the next episode. And that doesn't mean it's like Monster of the Week type stuff where none of these changes affects anything forward. But I just feel like I miss episodic content that's like real episodic content, because it's so rare these days. So like I appreciated like this whole episode is going to be them recovering from the destruction of their base. And it's them on the run, and the whole episode is them on the run trying to figure out what they're going to do and where they're going to go and what's going to happen next. And we did that whole story within this one episode, and then that ends, and then we move on to the next thing. I think that's really well done and well constructed, and like structurally, there's a lot to like about what this story does.
I agree completely. Yeah, it seems like the whole season was written out, carefully with the sense of the season wide and the episode wise pacing in mind.
Yeah.
And I watched this in like 2 sittings basically, because I was into it and I didn't want to stop. Actually, I probably would have watched it all the way through in 1 sitting if that weren't a little bit ridiculous. Because I was really into it. I was like, oh man, like one more episode, like it's good, you're enjoying it when you're bargaining with yourself to say, I can stay up a little bit later, I'll watch one more. Yeah. I did want to kind of like circle back around to talking about the visual style actually, because there was something I kind of popped into my head while we were talking about other things where I was like there's the robot fights which I think we're both sort of like ambivalent about, but then there were also a lot of scenes where there's just people fighting, and I thought those were pretty good actually. A few instances, like I'm thinking particularly of the one where they're fighting the dude,
the traitor.
Yeah, like I just thought that was a really good like well. I mean, it's funny to say well shot because it's not filmed, but that's kind of what I wanted to. I was trying to articulate what I'm trying to say about this. I don't know if I have the language for it, but I think that's fine. I'm going to work my way through it here. Like,
sure, go for it.
Like when you're fully animated, you can really just go crazy with your style. Like I think I showed you a YouTube, and it's worth looking at if you haven't seen it, where it's like breaking down some fight scenes in Naruto, and if you look at single frames of those fights, they're not things that a human body can physically do. But you don't notice that when you're watching it animated because it's playing to your sense of how physics works.
Yeah.
In a way that just makes it like, oh, yeah, sure, he's hitting him so hard that his body elongates. Like that can't really happen, but it works just fine in animation.
Yeah.
But and then in real life, in film, you can't do that kind of thing. But there's all kinds of other ways that you can work in stylization and all kinds of other camera tricks, obviously, to do action, which there's a huge depth of knowledge to be had there, and this is in this interesting place between the two where they can't or at least they don't go in and lean really into the style of like making non-physical things happen. They try to make it more like we're filming actors doing things, and so they go more of like what I would call maybe like a Western style of filming action, in terms of how they do their cutting and the angles they choose for filming things.
Yeah, I agree with that. It definitely feels Western.
Yeah,
which is why people get mad when you say anime.
Yeah. But like the actual choreography and the fact that it's in a computer so you can execute that choreography perfectly, I think works in their favor. Again, especially in the hand-to-hand fights, and for some reason, to my brain, less so in the mech fights.
Yeah. I wonder with that. Like, I guess my main complaint with the mech fights is I think there's often a loss of scale and weight to them. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that's why you like the hand-to-hand stuff better, is because that's much easier to produce on like a human scale, because that's what we're used to seeing all the time. Because I did feel like a lot of times the mechs moved in ways which like they're too big to move like that. Like, it's just like it'd be much more lumbering. That's actually like going back to Pacific Rim. One of the things I loved most about that movie was that I think the movie did scale really well. Like the big giant monsters and the big giant mechs felt huge. The way they moved, the weight that they had to them, I thought was really fantastically done. And I know like this show like wants to be cool, so like it wants the mechs to be like super agile, but I feel like in that decision the weightiness of them was lost a little bit, and I think that hurt the action to me.
I mean, I agree, and I guess I can dwell on that for a second too, just because it's like what possible material is this made out of that it can like crash into the ground out of the sky and literally have no scratch on it? Yeah. And like you said, it removes the sense that there's even a danger to be had. Like they're shooting at it, doesn't cause any damage. Smashing it into each other doesn't cause any damage. Smashing it into other things in the ground doesn't cause any damage. Yeah. It's so you're just in that realm where that is one regard where I think the stakes are lessened, but it's not. It's that nothing's going to happen until like the camera angle changes and you're like, oh yeah, this is dangerous now because we've decided this is the part of the episode where it's dangerous.
Yeah, that's true. It was very inconsistent as far as like what hurts them and what doesn't, right? Because they have these dinky little guns.
Yeah.
Poor Cammy has these dinky little tiny looking machine
Pistols,
guns.
yeah.
And it's not clear, like she shoots them at Nemesis a whole bunch.
Nothing
And it's
happens.
not clear
Yeah.
that that's doing anything. And I don't think it is. I don't think that ever actually does anything except plink off of him and maybe distract him briefly. But yeah, but the same thing happened to them. They were getting shots fired at them. And there were points in the show where like the armor looked worn, right? Like it had scratches and pockmarks in it and stuff. But it was never like that it was not consistently done. So it's just like sometimes they were like, okay, we have to show that they were just in a really rough battle or they've been fighting a lot, therefore scratched and pockmarked armor. But other times, nah.
Yeah, right. I agree. I mean, that's something where maybe it's just really, really hard to do
Yeah,
the way
probably...
I'm imagining. Like, I would love it where like every time a stray round from one of the crappy little spider robots hit them, it would actually leave a divot, and then they'd have to get it repaired. And then you'd have a sense of like, okay, they're not invincible. They actually are relying on their armor, and they can be damaged. But this is like a level of nitpicking where I'm like, I actually doubt that if they fixed that, it would like improve my enjoyment enough that it was worth all the money they spent fixing it. So I'm not.
Yeah, but I think when you're looking at why maybe the robot fights didn't work as well for either of us, then we were hoping they were. That could be a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to rant about something a bit here,
Go for it.
and this is probably going to be completely unfair, and I'm going to get people mad. In fact, I ranted about this in the Discord before we started recording, and people were already like, "Scott," but I don't like. I think anime intros, and I know this is not an anime. Don't yell at me, but it has a very anime-y intro, and I hate these things.
Yeah.
I really hate them, and I hate them in this case because like. It spoils the show in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like this intro shows the final form of each one of their mechs.
Not just that, but like the earlier you go in the show, you're like, oh, okay, so they're all going to be friends, and work together, and,
right?
And they're all going to end up on the same side and be a strong team,
yeah,
with their cool mechs and the final and basically spoils the fact that everyone survives at the end of the season because by the end of the season we haven't seen that armor yet, so we're like, well,
right,
none of them can die before they get their armor, so.
And like that's one thing, but then I think the show plays it as a reveal as well, right? Like there's the whole moment where the repair guy says like, oh, I got something prepared for Chase, and it's like it like doesn't tell you right away until he gets them. But I'm like, oh, he's gonna get wings.
Yeah,
because I've already seen it in the intro. Like I know he gets wings, and I know the yellow one gets wings. I know the Russian lady gets a cool stealth cloak.
Yeah, because
that was like I just like don't show me that. Like, and if you're gonna show me it, don't play those moments. Like part of the fun of the final episode of the 8th episode is seeing their fully customized mechs and seeing all the new fun shit they had. But showed it to us in the intro. Why did you do that?
Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you. Actually, I started skipping it first of all because it's like a minute and a half.
It is pretty long. Yeah, that's anime intros too. They're so long.
Yeah.
Like I like intros. Like there are shows that I've seen many times and I'm rewatching them, and I will still watch the intro all the way through the whole time. I'll do that with Buffy. I will watch the intro because I like the music and I think the intro is good. But I don't think Buffy is a minute and a half long.
Yeah, the X-Files intro still makes me really unnerved.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I got nothing good to say about the intro. Honestly, I don't know why you would do that to your show.
Yeah, I don't know. Especially like you're gonna clearly want those moments to matter. And I know like this is weird because like the people who wrote those moments into the scripts, the people who animated those moments into the show were not the same people that compiled images for the intro. Like those usually are two different teams working on those things. So it feels weird to criticize a show for showing us something in the intro and then playing it as a reveal in the show itself because those are different teams. But I'm still going to blame the show as a whole for that. I'm still going to be like, you wrecked your own moment. You built a cool moment into your show and then you destroyed it.
Yeah. I think this is actually interesting to talk about because, we've joked kind of, at tangentially about like, oh, this isn't really anime because but like this was clearly made by people who love anime.
Oh yeah,
Clearly influenced by anime. It's about giant robots fighting. I mean, like it's got a wacky cast of characters, which I understand is not, you know, monopolized by anime, but just it's loaded with anime tropes.
Yes,
it is not developed. I mean, it's not animated in Japan. It's only got one Japanese character. It's written by, I mean, I don't actually know who it's written by, but the point being,
Gray G. Haddock,
okay,
Jason Waite.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah,
Americans.
Yes, the point being that like it's super anime influenced, and this is one case where they're very obviously going for, hey, we want an anime intro. We want it to be an anime intro because what we're making is out of love of anime and inspired by anime. And this is one case where, unlike what they did with Cammy, I would be like, you didn't need to copy this aspect of anime, actually.
Yeah, and I agree, because like I don't like anime. I don't, but I liked the show.
Yeah.
I did like the show. I enjoyed a lot in the show. But yeah, I mean that is one that was like, I think the only thing the show that was really smart was it put the intro in the very first episode. The intro wasn't until the end, right? Like it's a cold open, and they don't do the whole intro sequence until the very end of the first episode. And I was glad for that, because I probably would have like rolled my eyes real bad and like had a negative feeling of the show going into it, because it would have set it up to be something I didn't think it ended up being. But I think this like skirts the tropes and the style of anime that bothers me enough to where I was okay with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's worth, I'm going to defend you here and just say like, it's not the fact that it's anime. It's not the fact that it's an anime intro that you're complaining about. It's the fact that it spoils the show that you're complaining about.
Yes.
Like, and I mean, even in the Discord, everyone was like, that's why you just skip it. And I'm like, yeah, why would you put it at the beginning of the episode if you wanted everyone to have to skip it?
Right.
Like, that's an own goal. Don't do that.
I think that's a fair thing to say, is just skip it. But yeah, but the show, I'm gonna critique the show for doing it, for sure.
Yeah. If everyone's like, oh, obviously you just skip it, I'm like, okay, then why did I put it there if then everyone skips it? Come on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I also didn't like Cammy's stupid little robot pet. I didn't like it.
I guess I was neutral on it. I mean, it would have been interesting if they made me care about it, but they didn't.
No. Okay, so I think let's circle back around and finish this conversation up by talking about Rooster Teeth.
Yeah.
Which is this really fascinating company that it's frankly incredible what they've done here.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is a company that started out doing jokey red versus blue videos, right? Like that's what they started doing. They made like jokey videos that was like using in-game Halo recordings.
Yeah. And making funny, just ridiculous farcical plots to I mean, it's really fun, really kind of a hilarious concept. Like they were just like, well, we have the Halo map of this particular gulch map with the two bases at the two ends, and we have the character models of Master Chief, and this is what we have to work with. So I guess let's make a show around this concept that they're just fighting this endless war. But I used to watch that show. I'm pretty sure back when it was new, and yeah, like you said, it's really cool. They just kept at it. They've grown. They've really apparently expanded the scope of all the different kinds of things they do and what they're involved in. I think at some point they actually were acquired, but so I'm not entirely sure what the relationship is between like the brand Rooster Teeth and the people who were actually behind it originally. Yeah,
it's owned by Otter Media, which is a AT&T Warner subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they are owned by a big old company. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of incredible. I mean, I know they've been doing the show Ruby forever, which is, I think, even more anime styled than Genlock for sure. I've never watched it, and I won't. But so they've been doing that, but I think that's a lot simpler too, or at least it started a lot simpler. It also had like, I think the episodes are a lot shorter when that started. This is a big step for them. this is, as you probably noticed by the cast, this is the first show that they produced that was allowed to use SAG-AFTRA people, which is how they got Michael B. Jordan, how they got Dakota Fanning and David Tennant and Maisie Williams, because they were actually like working with the Screen Actors Guild and therefore were SAG eligible, because the SAG has rules about like what productions can use SAG people and what can't. You know, it's part of their whole union control and restriction to make sure people are getting properly paid and all that. This is the first thing that they produced that they could do that.
Cool.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean that's legit, right? You're obviously way more educated about this than me, but that sounds really really cool.
That's a step into being considered a serious animation company, for sure. And that's great. Like, and if they keep producing stuff with this quality, you know, I'll be there. I don't know if I'm going to run out and watch the second season of this thing when it comes out, but you know, if it's free somewhere, like, that's the other thing is we got like a Rooster Teeth subscription, but we got like the free trial, which we'll probably cancel now that we're done with this. But you know, if they keep making stuff like this, maybe it's worth it. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of supporting an outfit like this. I guess my enthusiasm is mildly punctured by the fact that they're actually owned by massive corporation.
Well, everything's owned by a massive corporation, Matt. You can't escape it.
But I would like it more if they weren't. But I'm not gonna hold it too much against them.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely owned by giant corporation, but I think all the original founders of the company are still working with the company, or most of them at least. So yes, they sold out, but they
kept creative control, I guess.
I think they do, because they're you know, it's a subsidiary for sure, but they're still located in Austin. They're still doing their own stuff. They have a bunch of podcasts. I think I tried to apply for a job there once, actually, to do podcasting. I didn't get it, Matt.
Oh, okay.
Rooster Teeth, I've talked about 2 of your things now. Hire me to do podcasts.
Yeah.
Please.
Come on. Shouldn't this be qualifying?
You're definitely listening to this, right?
Definitely.
Right? I'm sorry I was critical about your show. I take it all back.
Take it all back. I'm looking at these images from that Ruby show you mentioned, and it's interesting because they're using this concept of like CGI but in an animation style, but it's a little bit different. Like, it's a lot more like cell shaded looking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
like the shadows are a lot less realistic looking, and the faces are more anime looking and less, because the faces in Genlock are all very like, they're like human faces do that. Like you can even see like ethnic markers on the faces. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
they're not like overstyled, right?
Yeah,
they're meant to look human.
Yeah, that's cool. I have to mention though, you know, before we're done, the fact that their arms never touch their sides.
Does that bother you?
It consistently bothered me the whole time, but what's funny is it's like the only mistake that they make. Like everyone walks around and they swing their arms when they walk, and it looks great, but they swing their arms like 6 inches out from their sides, and it looks robotic and weird. And it's
do you think that's a limitation of their like engine? Do you think like it's harder? Like more points of contact would maybe make the CG animating engine work harder or something?
I mean, my suspicion is that they would rather have the characters walk around slightly robotically than have them clipping their hands through their thighs.
Right, because if you either make it clip or you do collision detection within your model, and that's a whole lot more processing power.
Yeah.
If every time your character's arm swings, he has to do collision detection on his side.
I don't know exactly how they did it either. Like, I don't know how much mocap they use versus just like animators doing it. I'm leaning toward it mostly being animators, just based on my intuition, but I could be wrong.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I think mocap's probably too expensive for them.
I think you're probably right. In which case, probably just be a lot of extra work to tune every model to have. I don't know. I don't really really know. The last time I did any 3D animation was literally in high school. So I'll just say that that was like the only thing in the show where I noticed it, and I was like, that just doesn't look right. But anyway,
I think I didn't notice that specifically, but I did. I think that's why I felt like sometimes the animation was a little stiff. That's probably what I was tuned into without actually putting together that it's their arms are doing weird stuff. But.
Yeah. Really pretty minor, honestly.
Sure,
if I'm going to say that's the worst thing about the visuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Genlock. Overall, I think we both really liked it. I was happy and pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed this. We've watched some stuff for this patron produced stuff that I was like sitting here like, oh my God, I can't shit on this thing the whole time. I can't make a whole show where I'm just talking bad about a thing. And we didn't have to do that this time. I thought, we did have our critiques, but overall, like I love the characters. The story is interesting. The world's interesting. The concept of Genlock was interesting to me. And maybe it's because like I read some of the complaints about this thing. And one of the complaints was that this is really like isn't doing anything new in like the mecha genre, which is not something I have a lot of experience with because I don't really watch that much. Like I've seen whatever episodes of Gundam Wing that Michael made me watch with him. And that's about it.
Right.
So I don't have a lot of knowledge in the anime mech stuff. And I guess is Evangelion mech? I guess it is, right?
I don't know.
I forget. I watched that. I was like, why are you making me watch this? That was my response to that one. But so I guess maybe it didn't feel like it was reused ideas. I mean, it is very similar to Pacific Rim, but I think that was specifically drawing upon those tropes as well. So it didn't bother me. None of that bothered me at all.
I just thought it was well executed. I don't really care if something is borrowing every piece of what it's doing if it's well executed.
That's true. Let's talk about that for a bit.
Sure.
We were supposed to be wrapping up, but
that's fine.
I want to talk about this. I want to use this as a concept to talk about this idea of whether or not, like, how much value should we place into a critique that is you are borrowing tropes or ideas or concepts from other works.
I mean I think that critique is worthless on its own. If you're borrowing everything from one thing, then you have to ask, where's the you're just remaking that thing,
right?
In which case it's like, well, then I guess I'm not seeing anything new here. I could just watch the first thing or read the first thing or whatever. So the point of novelty is just like, well, if you're not giving me anything new, then why shouldn't I just watch the other things? And the reason in this case is like, well, it's well executed. It makes you feel things. It makes you care about the characters, and the relatively minor twists and details of the characters is what makes them novel and fresh and makes me care about them. So
yeah, I think that's fair. I think that is a complaint that you can sling against a work, but if you're not backing that up with some other critique of how it is executed in those ideas, then it is worthless. Now, I mean, I think we have to separate the difference between us critiquing a show and a person watching the show saying, I didn't care for this because I felt like it was recycling ideas. I think those are two different conversations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't feel so. I may have said some critical things today, but I don't feel like I was negative on the show. Like everything that I've said today was from a place of like this got me interested enough that it turned on the part of my brain where I started like taking it apart and putting it back together and thinking about how I would have done it differently, which is not to say like I hated it and I want to change it. It's like that's what I sound like when I get excited about something, actually.
Yeah.
So,
no, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did like this. I don't know. Did I say that yet? Did I like this? This is a good show.
I think you did. I think you did.
I do want to watch the second season. I hope they come out with the second season.
Great.
So, yeah.
All right. So that is Rooster Teeth's Gen: Lock. Doof. Let's talk about your favorite subject, the wars and the stars.
Yeah.
So this was not last weekend, but it was the weekend before Disney had their big Star Wars celebration in Chicago, I think it was. And the big news out of the Star Wars celebration was, of course, stuff related to Episode 9, because that is a movie coming out this December. And up until 2 weeks ago, we didn't even know what the name of the movie was, because that's a big reveal now. But we got that. We got the name of the movie. It is called Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. What do you think about that title, Matt?
I mean, this is probably the most obvious statement ever, but like it seems like they just were like, well, it has to be an R word because it has to be like, return, revenge, rise. Rise of what? What's the one word that is associated with Star Wars more than anything else? Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker. Print it. Print the posters. Get it out there. We don't have any more time.
So do you think that what this title is telling us is that one of our characters is a Skywalker?
I don't know. I mean, Kylo Ren is a Skywalker, sort of. Kinda.
Sure.
That's the maybe my optimistic take is this is actually about the rise of Kylo Ren and his redemption, rather than being about Rey, which is what everyone's kind of afraid that Rey is a Skywalker actually.
Yeah, that they're going to reverse the your parentage doesn't matter thing.
Yeah. That's, I guess not everyone in the world pays attention to the Star Wars Twitter as much as we do, but yeah, that's
unfortunately
the fear right now is that J.J. Abrams is going to be like, no, of course she's actually Luke's daughter or whatever.
Yeah,
secretly.
Well, he did say in an interview that there's something more to her parentage. Which is disconcerting. However, we have to remember this is J.J. Abrams, and he likes to say things like that all the time.
It's true.
Because he's obsessed with mysteries.
Yeah.
But I also think that is the reason why I do not think The Rise of Skywalker is talking about Rey, because it would be very anti-J.J. Abrams to reveal his mystery box in the title of the movie.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something he would do. He's much more secretive than that. So a lot of people say that it could just be some kind of, that's going to be the new name of the Jedi. They're not going to be the Jedi anymore. They're going to be the Skywalkers or something like that. I don't know. What do you think? So we had a trailer with it, though. What do you think of the 30-second teaser or whatever we got?
It's fine. I mean, I don't know.
So we heard the Emperor laugh at the end of it.
We heard the Emperor laugh. I don't know what to make of that. What's funny is I know where my brain goes immediately, which is to all of the Star Wars EU stuff about cloning, how the Emperor's cloned, comes back a bunch of times, and there's clones of Luke, and there's clones of, I don't know, there's clones of probably everybody at some point.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely familiar with everything in the expanded universe, but
I'm a little disappointed that you're familiar with anything.
I read all the Timothy Zahn novels when I was a kid.
Very upsetting.
Because that was like the first. That was when they first opened the gate on expanded universe, and kids like me were just desperate for Star Wars, and all we had was the movies, and then they were like, okay, now there's going to be books. And so it was really cool and fresh, this idea that there would be Star Wars books. And there were the 3 or whatever Timothy Zahn books. And they were pretty good to a 12-year-old. And then there were 70,000 books. And no one can keep up with that.
Yeah,
and
they just lost control.
They lost control. And the quality declined just due to simple, whatever. We're just going to hire anyone who wants to write a Star Wars book.
Yeah. So the fear is there that we're going to be going back to some of these bad. The idea of cloning and millions of clones scares me to no end. Especially I am on the record as being a guy that really liked The Last Jedi, and I'm not saying that if this movie goes in a different direction than The Last Jedi seemed to be indicating, that I will automatically hate it. But I mean, we got the Emperor laughing. We see the Death Star wreckage again.
Yeah.
Just got to see more wreckage of old things.
Yeah.
Lando's coming back, which that's fun. Fine. I don't know. I'm trying to not be negative. I'm trying to be excited because I did The Last Jedi made me excited for Star Wars stuff again. So I'm trying to get myself back into that mindset. Maybe I just need to go watch the movie again. Maybe that'll do it. But yeah, I don't think the Emperor is going to be not dead. I think he's probably just going to be a Force ghost thing. That seems like the most obvious way to go. We know the super powerful good dudes can do Force ghosting.
Right.
Why couldn't the Emperor do it as well?
right? And he is like canonically in all the movies the most powerful dude ever and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I hate to be the downer, but like the way I think about it is I don't really think about it as like Star Wars or not Star Wars. Like they've now shown me that it's not actually Star Wars that I like. It's specific movies made by specific people who were good at storytelling. And if you put Star Wars in the hands of idiots, they're gonna make lackluster movies. And this movie's back in the hands of J.J. Abrams. There's apparently a bunch of writers I'm looking at. I don't know any of these people actually. I don't know whether I should be afraid or not, but I know JJ is a writer.
Remember when Colin Trevorrow was going to direct this movie? At least we didn't get that. There's the positivity.
He's listed as a co-writer, and
they probably just threw him a bone.
They probably I mean he was probably like on a draft, and then they completely changed it. Yeah,
and Writers Guild rules requires his name to be on there if he did anything.
Yeah. So the thing is, I didn't love Force Awakens, and if JJ's back on it, I'm just using that as evidence against this movie. But I'm not someone who's gonna be super judgmental prior to knowing anything about the movie. I'm just saying. You can make a lot of you could probably make a pretty safe bet just based on whether the creator and person behind the helm knows what they're doing. Like it's hard to make a really, really good movie if the director doesn't really know how to tell stories at all.
Has J.J. Abrams ever finished something?
Anything?
He starts stories, right? Like he started Lost, but he wasn't running the show when Lost ended.
I mean, I can't imagine him finishing something because he never has any idea. He just wants to keep asking questions.
Right. And we should say this is going to be it, right? This is going to end the Skywalker saga. That's what they've been saying. Disney has said they're taking a break from Star Wars movies after this. They're getting rid of their one movie a year thing because, well, that was probably a bad idea in the first place. And I'm kind of glad they're done with it. We still have Rian Johnson's movies coming. He is working on a trilogy of movies that are going to take place somewhere. Those are still coming. They haven't been canceled, but they're not planning to release anything in the near future. However, there is TV stuff coming because Disney Plus is becoming a new thing. So I don't know. This has to be an end. It has to be an end of something. It is going to be an end of this story with these characters, with Luke Skywalker, with Leia, Han Solo. It's got to be the end.
Yeah.
Especially since two of those people are dead. And in real life, one of those people's dead.
Right. Well, he probably didn't just write it on his own, right? So
no, absolutely not. Yeah.
I mean, at least he's good at dramatizing storytelling if the storytelling is solid. But
yeah.
I don't trust him if he's the one generating the storytelling from whole cloth.
Yeah. Speaking of television, Disney Plus is coming. As I said, it's going to be priced at $7 a month, which is pretty competitive. And one of the big things out of the Star Wars weekend was The Mandalorian. This is Jon Favreau's show starring Pedro Pascal. Not about the Fets, but someone wearing Mandalorian army.
It's a completely different Mandalorian situation. Okay.
It's supposed to be set between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. And the footage they showed at the Star Wars Celebration, which they have not released to the general public yet, like blew the crap out of everyone. Like people went ballistic for it. So I don't know. Do you have any interest in seeing a Star Wars television show?
I'm open-minded about it. I mean, that's the dude who made Iron Man, right? I mean,
correct.
He's good. He's fine. I like him.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's ever run a show before. That's a really different kind of job.
Yeah. I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess. That's kind of always my attitude about stuff, and I give people a chance to impress me.
This is a good as a father of young children. Do you feel like you have to get Disney Plus?
No, there's plenty on Amazon Prime. to keep them entertained. I don't. That's one thing, is I don't really have my finger on the pulse. Like, maybe my daughter will, my oldest will come home one day and be like, "Dad, all the other girls are talking about this show that I don't know what it is, and I need to watch it, and it's only on Disney Plus." And then I would need to get Disney Plus. But that's the thing is, I don't know if that's happening, and I don't know if that even can happen anymore.
I don't even mean for the new stuff. I mean, like, if you want to show your kid some of the classic Disney movies, some of the classic Pixar movies, some of the classic Star Wars movies, the place you're going to have to go for that is going to be Disney Plus. That's where it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually been impossible to watch Disney movies forever. Like it's
because they do their Vault thing.
Yeah. So just to watch, like, I have been like, I want to watch Aladdin. Me as a human being wants to watch Aladdin, and just like found it utterly impossible. So maybe maybe, because those Disney movies are pretty good.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I hadn't considered that.
So now, do you feel obligated to get Disney Plus?
I'm slightly more interested than I was.
Okay.
But I'm very rarely like, oh, I'm out of movies to watch.
True. That is very true.
I only have all of Netflix and Amazon Prime. I can't find anything to watch. So
yeah. I think out of all the streaming services that are coming, though, I think Disney's in the best place.
Yeah.
They've got so much backlog. Like, like Apple is going to launch their service, and from what we've seen, they're relying completely on their own original programming. That's all they have. Disney Plus is going to have that, but it's also going to have the backlog of every single franchise that has ever existed in the world.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I'll probably end up getting it. Maybe we'll get like a Doof account and we'll share it.
Okay, if that's legal, of course.
It's not legal.
Oh, good.
I'm sure Disney will let us know.
Yeah, true.
Doof. All right, so I wanted to talk real quick about Missing Link, which is the new Leica film that nobody saw. Again, nobody saw.
I sure didn't. Tell me about it.
So Missing Link is about Hugh Jackman. It is a movie starring Hugh Jackman, who plays Sir Lionel Frost. He's an adventurer who tries to find like obscure fabled creatures, and he heads to America and finds Mr. Link, who is Bigfoot. And Mr. Link is lonely, and he wants to go find his long lost cousins, who is the Abominable Snowman. Mr. Link is voiced by Zach Galifianakis, and it's a really fun like adventure story. It is really, I mean, the animation is beautiful. It's beautiful stop motion animation. I'm continually like flabbergasted by just what they can do with stop motion these days. Like, this company, it's amazing. I think their like 3D printing has completely changed how they can do this whole thing. And it makes it so much better and so much more reliable and smoother. It's great. The animation is fantastic. And it's this fun little like Indiana Jones type comedy adventure story with Bigfoot and Hugh Jackman. And I really liked it. It's not my favorite Leica movie ever. Kubo and the Two Strings, the movie that came out 3 years ago, like completely blew me away. But this one was directed by Chris Butler, who also did Paranorman, which is a movie I really, really liked. So once again, Leica is churning out great stuff, and I think everyone should see this, even though they missed it in the theater.
Sounds pretty delightful. Yeah, I mean, I want to. I always try to see these eventually. Yeah.
It's more violent than I thought it was, honestly, and there's some scary parts. So young kids, you and I have a very specific feeling about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there was a poor little girl next to us in the theater who was just terrified because her father had to go to the bathroom. He left her in her seat, and it got to a particularly dramatic, emotional part of the movie, and she was just so scared.
Yeah, and I think of Leica as being pretty scary and
yeah, I mean, Coraline's a pretty damn intimidating movie for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kubo has some heavy themes at least. I don't remember if it has any particular horrifying images.
Yeah, I mean, both his parents are dead.
Yeah, right.
For sure. So
yeah. Cool.
Hey, do you want to talk about Game of Thrones before we quit?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to do a whole episode on it again, but there was an episode that came out.
Briefly mention that
Let's say spoilers first. Spoilers for Game of Thrones season 8, episode 2.
Episode 2
Matt,
specifically. Yeah.
What did you think about this episode?
I love this episode. What the hell?
Me too. Where was the show?
Yeah, where have these writers been? the whole last 4 years of the show. This is crazy.
It was so good. I mean, I loved every bit of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every character felt, like correct again. They played off all of these like built up interactions and relationships that they've been setting up and then kind of ignored for several years. I almost am like, yeah, if they keep on this track and they finish strong, they could actually kind of like turn around my feeling about the show. Because as it is, my feeling about the show is like, yeah, I had 4 really good seasons, and then just like there's no point in watching it past that.
Yeah.
But if they really turn it around and finish strong, I might have to revise that.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we have gotten 2 episodes out of the 6 remaining episodes that are character-focused, slow, calm explorations of conflicts and final moments and completing of arcs before we get into a shit ton of action stuff. Like, I can't believe we got that.
Yeah.
I never expected we would get that. And I thought every single moment was earned. The Jamie knighting Brienne moment is one of the greatest moments in the show. Like, hands down, like that got me. It was perfect. The look on her face, she's so happy. I loved it all.
Yeah.
I loved it all. I mean, I loved the show so much that Preston Jacobs' video on it was like the first time in a long time where I've been like, come on, Preston.
Yeah, right. Yeah, normally I'm right there with him.
Yeah, normally like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This time I was like, Preston,
yeah,
come on.
Yeah. Yeah. There were so many great scenes like between Dany and Sansa where they're having their like extremely overly polite conversation, which is now a meme. Just so many great conversations.
Oh yeah, the way that conversation, like the tone in that conversation shifts as they move, between trying to repair and then Sansa asking the question, what comes after. Like the way like I've been critical of Emilia Clarke and of Sophie Turner. There we go.
Yeah.
I've been critical of their performances on this show in the past, but I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The way they handled that shift in tone, and you could read it all on their faces, and I like it might be overly obvious, but the way the camera cut to Dany's hand, just slowly leave her hand, I thought that was a really, really nice touch.
Yeah, I agree too. Yeah, my favorite shot of the whole show was when Jon insinuates that Sam can go hide in the crypts, and Sam just looks at him like, the fuck did you just say to me?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I want to say is we're in this moment in time right now that there will never be again, right? We have 3 days until we find out what happens next. A bunch of people are going to die on Sunday. We know that to be sure. Like, the action is here now. This next episode is like they're bragging. It's like the longest battle sequence ever put to film. It's longer than Helm's Deep. It's longer than anything else. No one has ever done a battle sequence this long and this elaborate before. Is all the bragging stuff coming out of them. So we're in this really weird time right now where we're between that. Like, think about it. Never again in the rest of existence are people going to watch episode 2 and then have to sit with it for a week thinking about it and wondering what happens next.
Yeah.
Like, anyone that watches the show from 3 days on is going to jump right from episode 2 to episode 3.
Yeah.
And I love, like, we've talked about how Game of Thrones is one of the last event shows. And I really think we're going to lose something with that, because I really think there is something to this eve of the battle. All our characters get together knowing that they could die in the morning and deal with that through their interactions with each other. And then we have to live with that for a while. I think there's value there. I really do think there's value to having to live with that feeling and that emotion and that experience, and not just cut right into the battle where we see all those people die.
Yeah.
And I'm sad that the way TV is going, we are going to lose that eventually.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I kind of mentally went on a tangent about the fact that I first picked up Game of Thrones in like 1998. and so like for me, finding out if like Jamie gets his redemption or dies or whatever. It's like that's been in my brain for over 20 years. And so yeah, I agree with you that like the death of event-driven television is kind of a loss, but like then I just think about like books will still kind of provide the same thing, because book series will
fair.
always be a thing, and everyone's gonna be waiting for Patrick Rothfuss' next book and so forth.
And be really mean to those authors when they're taking too long.
Yeah, anytime they tweet anything, where's the book, George, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel you there. I think you're right, and like. Yeah, there's so. I mean, on the one side now, there's like infinite entertainment. You'll never run out. On the other side, that means that you can't just assume that everyone else is watching the same show as you and talk about it with them.
Yeah, but I mean, I only say this. Let's revel in this moment, right?
Yeah.
We've got 3 days. This is a Thursday night when we're recording this. We've got 3 days to not know.
Yeah,
and I think we should revel in this time, because this is a unique time in history. No one will ever not know what happens in the Battle of Winterfell ever again.
Yeah,
and I think that's a cool place to be.
Yeah, so everyone revel. Yeah,
revel before the deaths.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, that is all we have for you guys on the show this week. If you want to let us know what you think about Genlock, what you think about the Star Wars title, what you thought about Missing Link, if you actually saw it, please go see it. If you have any opinions about anything we talked about, reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account @doofmedia. That is a good account to follow if you want to see all of our new news, episodes, schedule changes, what have you. You can see all that at doofmedia. And Matt, I don't know if we ever announced this on the show, but we have a calendar now.
That's right.
If you go to doofmedia.com/calendar, you will see our release schedule. It's usually about a month in advance. So everything from now until a month from now, you'll see what episodes are coming out when for all of our shows. So if you're ever curious about what's happening, when live streams are happening, when episodes are going to be released, what are we covering this week on the Doofcast, you can see it all there at doofmedia.com/calendar. So you should bookmark that page.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find all those shows along with that calendar over at doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can go over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to help ensure we keep growing and keep making new stuff. This episode right here only exists thanks to the wonderful generosity of our long time patron, Keira. Keira, thank you so much for supporting us and donating and for making us watch this excellent show that we really, really did like. And thank you everyone else who donates to us and who supports us. We do really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Keira, specifically, because I really did enjoy this. And now I'm actually looking forward to the next season.
Well, there you go. You did it, Keira. You did it.
Yeah. So also, of course, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, everyone. We will see you all next week when we talk about the biggest movie event ever. Yes. We will be reviewing Avengers Endgame on next week's show. I haven't seen it yet. Matt, I know you haven't seen it yet, but we're very, very excited.
Yes, we are.
We'll see you all next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.